So, welcome to this morning. I'm super happy to have you all already starting with us in that fourth Climate Transformation Summit. It's 2023, and we are beyond excited to go with you into this year's topic of making transformation happen. So really having spent 2 days, the next 2 days, everything about climate community and sharing together best practices for decarbonization of companies and their supply chains. And before I go into everything that awaits you for the next 2 days, I want to make sure that we are all well settled. So first of all, I very much invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, as I see a lot of you have been doing already, because for us, the summit is really all about you. So you make it happen, that we come here together as a community and that you connect in the best way possible with everyone around, and that you have the possibility to exchange your knowledge, to learn from others, to grab a virtual coffee later, and maybe even meet us in person. And I see that many of you are already introducing, so that's amazing. And maybe you want to share your name and from where you're listening in, and that is already an amazing start. So I see Christopher, welcome, Christian, Julian, and Wiebke, Marie. It's amazing to have you all. And I'm sure many will also join in a bit, because it can be tricky to come into an online tool. So congrats to all of you, you made it. I assume that has been the hardest part for the next 2 days. And if anyone is still writing us emails or have issues, we are super happy to support. And I'm going to share in a bit more about that. But before we go into all these small details, let me also share with you why we are doing this Climate Transformation Summit. So we are a climate tech company from Berlin working on decarbonization of companies and supply chains. So that is the obvious connection. But why do we believe that it really needs this kind of community to address that topic? So we are super happy to have the summit with a wide range of different partners, supporters, speakers, workshop hosts, and whom we call climate pioneers, so companies providing solutions to address that challenge. And we very much believe that it does not need one solution, but like many of them. And for sure, it needs all of us to collaborate and work together to really come towards a climate transformation happening. And I would like to share with you why we believe in that, why we give out that claim, you could say, that companies can become climate champions, and that we are all part of that, and that we are creating a future we want to see come true. And the first thing I always love to share is that I never believed that companies can become climate champions. I always thought they are the problem. And then B, that has dramatically changed when I had the chance to see the first time really the science behind the climate change, behind the things we experience in the world, and like really see the facts behind it. That was almost 10 years ago, 2014, in my studies. And back then I had the chance to really study the IPCC report and see the data behind climate change. And what we were seeing, or what I could study back then, was really shocking to me, because I didn't know until then that we are really on such a fast pace to accelerate us out of everything we have experienced in at least the last 10,000 years, where we had a more or less stable climate, and that we have the chance towards the end of this century to really come beyond 3 degrees global warming. And I know that can be devastating, that can be shocking. It's hard to see that already 2050, we can have quite huge negative impacts worldwide. But I think it also gives quite a lot of climate power, because that is what happened with me. I back then realized that we are really now between 2020 and 2030 in this critical decade, in this short time frame where we really can take actions and where we can calibrate and think about where do we stand right now and how does the future can look like and how do we want to have it look like. And we do see that there is still this time frame, even though it becomes smaller and smaller, and that we are likely to cross within the next 6-7 years the 1.5 degree scenario. But what I always love to highlight is it doesn't stop here. So we have seen where we came from, and it can accelerate, it can become warmer and warmer. And it's nothing where we say, okay, we have crossed the 1.5 degrees, now everything is done. There are scenarios where it can go down again. There are scenarios where it can be steady. There are scenarios where it can go up a lot. So it's really on us. We see it's a curve, it's reacting to us, and we have the power to navigate it. And I do think it's also very important when we talk about climate to see that climate is not a topic in itself. It's not about CO2 numbers. It's not at all about offsetting. It's really about creating impact and seeing which kind of impact we have in the world. And I very much like this graphic because it shows how climate is also connected to, for example, biodiversity. So the hotter it becomes, so to say, on Earth, we see that animals, that plants, that our whole ecosystem is threatened as well. And there are many, many more ripple effects and like other connections. And from there, the most important part is to really see that's where we stand right now. And if we go from here, we have now the power to decide how it can go on. And the most amazing part is when we look into science, it does not always has to be devastating. It's actually fun to see that we have a lot of solutions out there. And they are not only about maybe the obvious things like renewable energies, but also a lot about system thinking and behavioral change. So you see very, very small in here, the SDGs, Sustainability Development Goals. They will be also a part of this conference today to tell us, okay, climate is one goal, but it has to be integrated into a holistic sustainability approach so that it can really have an impact. And when we then think about the future, so really looking into that decade, we have the goal until 2030 to cut emissions half compared to 1990. And I strongly believe we must imagine the world we want to live in to have a chance to really create it. And therefore, I want to invite you to really quickly do this imaginary journey to 2030. So what do we see in science that needs to happen, that we are changing it so that we can have a world we want to see come true? And what I take out of it are 3 major mindset shifts that we need to go through to really unblock that future of a more climate compatible environment and economy. And the first thing we would need to switch is starting with acceptance. So especially here today at the Climate Transformation Summit, we really aim to bring together people from economy, decision makers, employees, everyone who's a climate enthusiast and really want to bring that topic forward. And it can be really challenging because we see, it starts with accepting, we see economy plays a major role in climate change. So we can tie back all emissions worldwide majorly to different industries. We see it's very much connected to energy, but then from these different industries, it spreads down in smaller ones, in different ones, in different topics. So it goes to the construction field, to agriculture, to transportation, and so on. And behind all of these industries are separate companies that are creating emission. So in the end, we have to see that all of our jobs are somehow connected to creating emissions, and that all these different companies are connected to creating emissions. But also that each of these companies are not alone. So every single company creating emission is most often part of a global supply chain. And we see that worldwide, half of our emissions are only locked in 8 global supply chains. And in each of these supply chains, we have not hundreds, not thousands, but 10,000 and millions of companies being all part of this system that we have created, whereby by buying products and services and selling them, we are basically handing over emissions, and they keep adding up, so that we have, right now a system that is part of this huge acceleration of climate change. And why I'm saying that is not to go into acceptance and maybe have us being locked or limited by climate fear and feeling overwhelmed by it. But instead, to really say, okay, that's the status quo. Where do we want to go from here? And taking responsibility in changing it. And that is, again, the beauty of it, because we see in science that most of the solutions are already out there, at least if we look until 2030, what we need to cut emissions half. So the IPCC report shows us we basically have no solution problem, we have an implementation issue. And we see that for all of these different areas, the different industries, there are already solutions out that have often a huge impact and low cost. So also when we look into supply chains, we see that for all these different supply chains, we have solutions, we have assumptions. We can see that until 2030, we could cut emissions, at least in the supply chains, by about 40% with low cost, relatively low cost. And we have solutions for going beyond that. So what is this third mindset shift we need to have is really going from acceptance to responsibility and then action. And this is where we strongly believe in a community taking actions and really creating together the future we want to see, and not limiting us in the thought of going to 2030, but really going beyond that, going until 2050, where we have the goal as a global community since the Paris Agreement to be at latest climate neutral. However we define that will be probably a lot of discussions in the next 2 days. So from this kind of journey ahead, introducing you to the summit, I hope what you take out of it is that we really see you all as part of this climate community of everyone being an individual decision maker and having the chance to really see where do I contribute, which kind of different climate relevant decisions can I take, how is my company connected to climate transformation, how can we transform and decrease emissions, and how are we also part of global supply chains and can maybe give our handprint a much bigger acceleration by also activating business partners, accelerating climate actions in supply chains, and thinking about how we take buying decisions. And this is what we hope to have brought in a very nice agenda so that we can tackle all these different topics. We have 2 days of interactive program. And to give you a very rough, so to say, separation, how we have structured is that the first day will be all about the status quo. Where do we find us as companies? Which kind of political change are happening right now? Which kind of regulations companies are facing? And how does it all frame together as the climate frame, so to say, companies are navigating in? And how does it also connect to sustainability in general? And how can everyone handling this topic right now in the company make sense of it, find their own team to work on it, and find the right tools and resources to take action? And then on the second day, we really go beyond that and say, okay, climate doesn't stop at your company's door. How can you activate all your stakeholders? If you did your homeworks and you have restructured maybe your own company or implemented first solutions, how can you activate your business partners, maybe your customers, your allies in one way or the other, to bring that climate journey outside your company and ideally spread it across the world into global supply chains? So these are the 2 days. And in between, you find every day a very nice introduction and keynote. You're going to find out soon who it is, or you already looked in the agenda. Then we have a main panel going into the overall topics of that day. And then it's all about getting active. So a lot of you have already registered for workshops. The people who didn't so far, you can always get support at the info booth, and I come to that in a second. And then in the afternoons, we have a fireside chat where we go really in the practical topics, where decision makers and practitioners from the field explain us how their role is changing, how they are contributing, what are their challenges. And then we have this year, for the first time, on today's evening, a very nice event in Hamburg and Berlin. So the first time that we are introducing in-person satellite events. And unfortunately, the Berlin one is already booked out. But the one in Hamburg will also be streamed here online. So you will have a bigger break between that. And if you like, you can join in the evening online for the satellite event also in Hamburg. And yeah, then we also have something that we started last year and got a lot of good feedback for that. So I already introduced it here. Again, you will have during the next few days more explanation to it. But we have a Climate Champion Award tomorrow afternoon. And basically what you can do is that we will ask all participants to vote for the best climate leader, supply chain transformator, and climate pioneer. So all our exhibitors providing solutions. So we will ask you, which kind of solution made the most sense for you, and you can show us by voting for it. And from here, as promised, I would give you a small walkthrough to the tool, not extensive one. You find most of the information in the handbook, but just to navigate you a little bit. You made it already to the session, so I trust it's working for you, but maybe you also figured out that on Chrome you have the best connection, that you should close all other tabs you have, especially all other video calls, so that your voice is, or the sound is good. And in our lobby, you find most of the information we think you need. If there's anything else, you can always chat with us. And especially you find on the bottom, here in that picture now a little bit small, you find an info booth where I have my team waiting for you. So you can go there, chat, or go in a personal conversation video call to ask any kind of question. And there's no stupid one. We are always happy to support. And next to it, you also find our handbook. So we have put all the information down, different links, the agenda, support with the tech, and so on. So those two are maybe really important for you if you have any question. And then other than that, you find on the top this schedule where you can always navigate around the summit. So you find all the different sessions. All you have to do is clicking on it, joining the session, participating. You also find the workshops there. You find every single session, and you will be able to enter the moment the session starts. And then also next ones are the exhibitors. I have made it here in the picture, a small circle on the corner in the right. But also you find it on top as online fair. And here you will have the exhibitor booths. So you can see them the whole day. You can already scroll there, find resources and information. But then in the afternoon, we have a dedicated session where you can also always meet the exhibitors, ask questions, book a call, maybe for the next few days, so that you're not just overwhelmed for today. But you can also sit at personal booths. Then you have the launch, which is here on top in the middle, which is our network session. So you can use it at all times. There are different tables where you can sit at and really then go in a face-to-face conversation. But what we invite you specifically is that we have during the summit 3 times networking sessions. And when you join the launch in these times, it will automatically connect you with other people in speed networking. So a few minutes conversation, and then you see someone else. So we really want to make sure that you meet the most people possible. And then connected to that on the right upper corner as well, you can always see who's in the sessions or like who's online. you have your personal note. Here it gives already a red dot. That means you got a personal message. It's not a public one. And you can always chat to other people and maybe make a connection for your next lunch or coffee break. Having said that, our team is super excited to have you hosting you the next 2 days, answering questions at the info booth, all other ways, chats and so on. They have put in a tremendous amount of work into it, specifically Alice, maybe some of you have been already writing to them, our summit host. So thanks a lot on that side. And whenever there are maybe some last emails, I think, you will still get an answer. And from here, I think I just have to say a big, big, big thank you to all of our partners who really make the summit happen and support us with organization, with input, with speakers, with some workshops. You're going to find them again in the next 2 days. Spreading the word as well. So we are amazed to have like such a strong community now in the last 3 years for the 4th summit. And I'm really excited to have you all participating in one way or the other. So thanks a lot for that. And I would not want to miss saying thank you to all of you joining here already in the morning. You are the community. You really take the action forwards. And as usual, I already have a small task for you. So you did introduce yourself here in the chat, but I also showed you how to write a personal message. So your task right now would be to find 2 people, and you can just go by name, someone whom you don't know yet, and please write to this person your climate aha moment. So for me, it was 2014 when I realized that the climate transformation is our biggest challenge in this century. When was your time? Maybe it was in the last few years when Fridays for Future was active, maybe when your child asked you about it, maybe when your company had new goals. So please find 2 people and write them a short message, introduce yourself and say what was your climate aha moment. And while you are doing that, I will use the time to introduce you to someone really special who will share with you also her climate aha moment, or maybe the mission that drives her through her life and the message she has for you. And I think I don't really have to introduce her. She is one of our ambassadors.
Hello.
And I will just play her video. It's one of the only
It all began on
recordings.
Jane Goodall's front porch in Tanzania.
You always have to use one time
Hello,
the
this
wrong
is Jane
thing.
Goodall.
So
We're living in pretty dark times, aren't we? Politically, socially, and environmentally. All these 3 are interlinked. We can't solve climate change until political leaders take action to limit emissions that result in the greenhouse gases that blanket the globe, retain the heat of the sun, and cause climate change. It's necessary to eliminate poverty, for poor people often destroy the environment simply in order to survive, cutting down trees to create more land for feeding their families or to make money from charcoal or timber. It's almost universally believed now that climate change, along with loss of biodiversity, poses an existential threat to life on Earth as we know it. It's causing changes in weather patterns around the globe. There are more and worse hurricanes, floods, droughts, heat waves, and terrifying bushfires. Both climate change and loss of biodiversity are caused by our disrespect of the natural world and animals. And we must recognize that we're part of and depend on the natural world for food, water, air, everything. But we depend on healthy ecosystems. An ecosystem is comprised of a complex and interdependent mix of a number of plant and animal species. And as more and more of them become extinct in a given ecosystem, eventually it will collapse. If we don't address these issues, if we lose hope and fall into apathy and do nothing, we're doomed, and time is running out for action. The responsibility lies with governments, businesses, and individuals. One problem lies in the fact that there's the crazy idea there can be unlimited economic development in a world with finite natural resources, and these are being used in a very unsustainable way, as well as the fact that we have a growing population of humans and livestock. Governments need to enforce, among other things, legislation that protects the environment and subsidize programs to develop and introduce, for example, alternative energy. And they need to work to eliminate or at least reduce poverty. Businesses for too long have put the need for short-term gain ahead of protecting the natural world for the benefit of future generations. Instead, it's vital that their operations are conducted ethically with regard to the environment and the treatment of their staff and local communities. And it's vital that they work towards zero emissions. And what about the rest of us? Unless we're living in poverty or under a repressive regime, we can play a vital role as consumers, choosing what we buy. We must find out if its production harmed the environment, was cruel to animals, or is cheap because of unfair wages. And if that's so, we shouldn't buy it. Consumer pressure plays an important role in moving business towards ethical practices. We can walk, cycle, or use public transport when possible. We can save electricity by turning off appliances when not in use. We can plant trees or support our organizations that protect forests and the environment and wildlife. We can vote for politicians who are prepared to support legislation that protects the environment and the well-being of their citizens, and the well-being of animals too. Perhaps most important of all is the support and education of children, because they're inheriting a damaged world, and they need all the help we can give them. The Jane Goodall Institute's own program, Roots and Shoots, is for young people of all ages, from infancy through to adulthood and beyond. It's now in 68 countries and growing with hundreds of thousands of groups. Its main message is that every individual matters, has a role to play, and makes an impact on the planet every day. Each group, as a way of understanding the interconnectedness of all aspects of our problems today, chooses 3 projects, one to help people, one to help animals, one to help the environment. They discuss what they can do, roll up their sleeves, and take action. These young people, once they understand the problems and are empowered to take action, are so passionate and energetic that they give me the most hope for the future, along with the resilience of nature, our incredible human intellect, and the indomitable spirit that drives people to attempt the seemingly impossible and so often succeed. Thank you.
So I think I don't have to add anything. We are super honored to have that greeting words from Jane for all of us going into the summit. There's more to come from the Jane Goodall Foundation tomorrow, actually, so you can wait for that. And that's all about the introduction. We are yet good in time. I'm about to close that session, and we can take all our energy into the first keynote of today. So I see you in a bit. You just have to go to view the schedule, and I will open it and introduce you to the first keynote of today. Thank you so much for the introduction here already, and have wonderful 2 days waiting for you. See you.